So we are getting a lot of questions about Israel in the chat. So we are going, one of them is, what
You
do I
you should
say?
you should answer them.
What do I say to those who question her support of Israel? So we are going to post our talking points in the chat, but for a moment, I want to talk briefly about how Israel came into play in this debate. So she was asked about the conflict between Israel and Hamas. And she started her answer with an unequivocal condemnation of the terror that we saw on October 7th of Hamas. She affirmed Israel has the right to defend itself. She called for a ceasefire that includes the release of hostages. She conveyed her support of a two-state solution that includes security for Israel and self-determination for Palestinians. And then she provided an explicit assurance that she would always, this is a quote, give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. Donald Trump, on the other hand, didn't say anything condemning Hamas or October 7th. He said nothing about the hostages yet again, which is similar to what we saw earlier this month when there was the horrific execution of 6 hostages, including 1 American. There was no empathy, no condolences, no condemnation from Donald Trump. He posted a political tweet about himself. Um, he falsely accused Kamala Harris of not meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu. Earlier this summer in July, she met with him for an hour in the White House. Um, and then he repeated this ominous threat that he's been saying lately. He said, Israel won't exist in 2 years if he's not elected president. He said, this is a quote, the whole place is going to get blown up if he's not elected president. For good measure, he added that he would settle the situation in the Middle East. He said he'd also end the war in Ukraine. All that is going to happen, not just if he's elected president, but during the transition period, because he said he's going to do it if he's the president-elect before he's president. Good luck to you, Donald Trump. And then he had the audacity of falsely accusing her of hating Israel, not once, but twice. Now, I've discussed this before, but it bears repeating, and I'll say it again. I've worked with Kamala Harris. I was her national security advisor in the Senate 7 years ago, 2017 and 2018. I traveled with her to Israel. I saw firsthand that her support of Israel and its security and its right to self-defense not only has been something that she has carried with her throughout her career, but it predates her time in this White House. It predates the fact that in this White House, she absolutely has shared Joe Biden's unequivocal and staunch support of Israel. It's something that she came to the Senate believing, and it is her view, it is her policy. It has not changed. It has never changed. It has only been strengthened in the aftermath of October 7th as she has supported the efforts of this administration to give Israel unprecedented military support, both in terms of the $14.3 billion that was provided earlier this year. It would have been sooner had Republicans not delayed it for 6 months, and J.D. Vance voted against it twice. But also by moving military assets to the region, by deploying the U.S. military 3 times in defense of Israel in a way that has been unprecedented in American history. After October 7th, in the lead up to and during the unprecedented Iranian attack on Israel on April 14th, it was April 13th and 14th. And then recently, given the Iranian threats against Israel, again, we've redeployed carrier strike groups to the Eastern Mediterranean. So we have talking points that reaffirm Vice President Harris's support of Israel. And as Simon has said, I think the most important thing that we can all do is not be on the defense. This is something about which we can be on the offense. Are we going to believe Donald Trump, who has repeatedly disparaged millions of us, including as recently as last night when he went to do his own spin, pathetically, in the spin room? He repeated, just for good measure, of course, that anyone who votes for her has to have their head examined. Are we going to believe him about her record or believe her record? She's never wavered on this issue. She has never wavered. She's a staunch supporter of Israel. So if anyone has any doubts, please let them know where she stands and where she's always stood on this issue and where she will continue to stand on this issue. We also know that Jewish voters don't buy it. As our pollster says, there's research and there's research. And I know there are some who say, oh, we won't vote this way or that way because of Israel. Well, what we have seen as recently as this week, per a September national poll of Jewish voters that was conducted, is that 72% of Jewish voters are supporting Kamala Harris in a direct matchup with Donald Trump, who is at exactly 25%. Now, what's important about that 25%? It's a 0.0 gain from where he was in 2016. That is what he got election night 2016. Now, could there be better news? Yes, there could be better news. I'd like to see his 0% gain be in the negative and her numbers to go up even further. And that's the work that we all are going to be doing, that JDCA is doing in the next 8 weeks, is ensuring that Jewish voters show up and vote, not just for Kamala Harris, but for Democrats who share our values like Kamala Harris up and down the ticket.